Ever feel like being normal isn't enough? Join Jack on his epic quest to find his extraordinary.
You know, being 18 is supposed to be this awesome time, right? You're supposed to have your whole life ahead of you, dreams, ambitions, maybe even a cool talent that makes people go, wow, that guy's really something. Yeah, not me. Most mornings, you can find me sprawled out on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through the endless parade of perfect people on social media. It's like a talent show on steroids. There's this girl who can sing like she's auditioning for the next big music competition. She's got the high notes, the riffs, all of it. Then there's this guy who can draw so well, he could probably sketch a realistic portrait of you with his eyes closed. And don't even get me started on the sports dudes. Six packs, perfect form, running like they're training for the Olympics. Meanwhile, I've got, a pretty decent skill at binge-watching entire TV series in one day. I know, impressive, right? So yeah, the more I scrolled, the more I started feeling, well, like the oatmeal of the world. You know, just kinda there. Bland. Ordinary. No raisins. No cinnamon. Not even a sprinkle of sugar. There was this one time, I thought, okay, Jack, you're gonna find your thing. You just haven't discovered it yet. So, I decided to try singing. I mean, how hard could it be? People do it in the shower all the time, right? Maybe I had this hidden Adele-like voice just waiting to burst out. Spoiler alert, I did not. I stood in front of the mirror, took a deep breath, and belted out the chorus to that one really popular song. You know, the one that everyone knows, but no one actually knows the lyrics to? Let's just say, my neighbors may or may not have filed a noise complaint. Apparently, not everyone appreciates the sound of a cat being strangled. Who knew? Okay, so singing's not my thing. No big deal. Next up, drawing. I grabbed a pencil, a sketchbook, and set out to create my masterpiece. What did I end up with? A lopsided stick figure that looked like it had just been hit by a bus. Picasso, I am not. And don't even ask me about sports. That ended with me tangled in a soccer net. My dignity left somewhere back on the field, and a bunch of 10-year-olds laughing at me. 10-year-olds. So yeah, it became pretty clear I wasn't exactly destined to become a world-famous singer, artist, or athlete. But then, this really annoying voice in my head, the one that loves to remind me of every embarrassing moment I've ever had, started whispering things like, well, what if you're just normal? Ugh, normal. Like, I'm just some random guy who blends into the background while everyone else is out there breaking world records or winning Grammys. And that's when things started to change. Not in a good way either. I started feeling this weird pressure, like I had to be something special, or I was just going to fade into the void. Suddenly, everyone around me seemed like they were doing these incredible things. My classmates would casually drop things like, oh yeah, I just won this science competition, or I'm training for a marathon. And there I was, just existing. It got to the point where I'd avoid conversations with people because, honestly, what was I going to contribute? Hey guys, guess what? I just broke my personal record for most hours spent playing video games without blinking. Yeah, that wasn't exactly going to impress anyone. Eventually, I started pulling back. You know, retreating into my little bubble. I didn't want to talk to anyone, hang out, or even try anything new. I didn't want to talk to anyone, hang out, or even try anything new. I felt like, what was the point? Why bother when I was just going to fail or be mediocre at everything? But, of course, my parents, being the psychic superheroes they are, picked up on it. One night, while I was lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling and contemplating my non-existent future as a famous anything, they came into my room. We know you're feeling like crap, but we're about to hit you with some serious life advice. Jack, she started, we've noticed you've been a bit down lately. Understatement of the year. Dad chimed in, you've been trying all these things, which is great, but we want you to know that it's okay if you don't figure everything out right away. And there it was, support and guidance, wrapped up in Dad's usual calm, reassuring tone. I mean, how do they do that? How do they know exactly when to drop these nuggets of wisdom? They told me about all these people who didn't discover their passions until later in life. People who were just normal for a long time before they found something that lit them up inside. It was kind of like hearing that even the superheroes didn't start off with capes. They had to figure out what made them special too. Mom smiled and said, "There's no rush to be special. You're amazing just the way you are. And when you do find something you're passionate about, it won't matter if it's big or small. It'll be yours." That hit me. Maybe I didn't have to be extraordinary to be valuable. Maybe I was fine just as Jack. No extra labels, no grand achievements. But, of course, they didn't just say these things and leave me to figure it out on my own. Oh no, they were determined to help me find my thing, whatever that thing was. So, we started trying stuff. All kinds of stuff. We tried playing music together. Turns out, I'm not the next rock star either, but hey, I did manage to hit a few notes that didn't sound like a dying walrus. So there's that. Then we tried cooking. That was an adventure. I almost set the kitchen on fire making pancakes. Seriously, who knew pancakes could be so dangerous? Next, we volunteered at the local shelter. And while I didn't exactly discover some hidden superhero skill there, I did feel pretty good about helping out. So yeah, we went through this whole process of trial and error, emphasis on error. And honestly, it was kind of fun. Even when I failed spectacularly, it didn't feel as bad because I had them by my side, cheering me on. So there I was, after months of trying and failing at all kinds of things. Still Jack, still ordinary, but not feeling as hopelessly lost as before. It wasn't like I suddenly woke up one morning and thought, aha, I found my passion. Nope, life doesn't work that way. Turns out, you have to stumble upon it in the least expected ways. And stumble I did. One day, I was sitting with my mom, helping her redecorate the living room. Well, helping is a strong word. I was really just there to carry the heavy stuff and occasionally nod in agreement, but then, something weird happened. As she was deciding where to put a new shelf, I started thinking about how the room could look better. Like, not just putting things here or there, but actually designing the space, making it more, I don't know, me? That's when I said something that shocked even me. I said, this shelf would look way better over there, and if we added some plants, it'd brighten up the space. Mom just blinked at me for a second, and then she smiled. Like, this huge grin spread across her face, and she said, "Jack, that's a great idea. You've got an eye for this." I laughed it off, thinking she was just being nice. But later that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The idea of designing, of creating something from scratch, it was weirdly exciting. So, naturally, I did what any normal 18-year-old would do. I went down a YouTube rabbit hole, watching videos on interior design, DIY projects, and all kinds of creative stuff. And guess what? I loved it. I started small, rearranging my room, then moved on to helping some friends with their spaces. Before I knew it, I was knee-deep in design projects, experimenting with different styles, colors, and even building a few things from scratch. I wasn't trying to be the next big thing in design. I was just doing it because it made me feel, well, alive. That's when the crazy idea hit me. What if I turned this into something bigger? What if I could actually help people, not just with design, but with creating spaces that made them feel happy, comfortable, and themselves? I mean, if I could help someone feel the way I did when I finally found something I loved, that'd be pretty cool, right? So, with my parents' encouragement and a little bit of financial help, I decided to start a small business. It wasn't anything fancy at first, just a website, some social media posts, and me offering to help people redesign their rooms or organize their spaces. I called it Spaces by Jack. Yeah, I know, not the most original name, but hey, it worked. At first, I didn't expect much. I figured a few friends might hire me, and that'd be it. But then, word started to spread. Turns out, people really liked what I was doing. Not because I was some design prodigy or anything, but because I cared. I listened to what people wanted, and I worked with them to create something that felt like them. Not some Pinterest perfect room that looked great but didn't feel real. The payoff wasn't instant. There were definitely days when I wondered if I was in way over my head. Like the time I accidentally knocked over a giant potted plant in someone's newly renovated living room. Let's just say, soil and white carpets do not mix well. But even in those moments, I realized something. I wasn't failing because I was bad at what I was doing. I was learning. And more importantly, I was loving every second of it. And then, something amazing happened. My little business started to grow. People were recommending me to their friends, and those friends recommended me to their friends. Soon enough, I wasn't just rearranging bedrooms. I was helping people create home offices, living rooms, even outdoor spaces. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't just normal anymore. I wasn't trying to be extraordinary either. I was just doing what I loved, and that was enough.
Now that we've walked with Jack through his journey of self-discovery, let's take a moment to break down some important words and phrases that might be new to you. Understanding these will not only help you enjoy the story better but also expand your vocabulary, especially when it comes to expressing emotions and talking about personal growth. Here are the key words and phrases from Jack's story. 1. Stumble upon. Explanation. This phrase means to find or discover something by accident or unexpectedly. It's often used when you come across something without actively searching for it. Example from the story, Jack says, turns out, you have to stumble upon it in the least expected ways. This means he discovered his passion for design unexpectedly. 2. In way over my head. Explanation. This phrase is used when someone feels overwhelmed or involved in something that is too difficult or complicated for them to handle. Example from the story, Jack reflects, there were definitely days when I wondered if I was in way over my head. He's describing moments when he felt like he was doing something beyond his abilities. 3. Payoff. Explanation. In this context, the word payoff refers to the reward or benefit you receive after putting in a lot of hard work. Example from the story, Jack says, the payoff wasn't instant. He's talking about the delayed reward for all his effort in building his design business. 4. Rabbit hole. Explanation. The phrase going down a rabbit hole means becoming deeply involved in something, especially when it leads you away from your original goal, often taking up a lot of time. Example from the story, Jack says, I went down a YouTube rabbit hole, referring to how he spent a lot of time watching design videos and getting deeply engrossed in the subject. 5. Get out of my head. Explanation. This phrase means to stop overthinking or being consumed by your thoughts, especially when they are holding you back. Example from the story, Jack reflects, I just had to get out of my head long enough to see that. He's talking about the need to stop worrying and start doing.